Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Marquette, and so glad you've joined us to Stay Curious on Monday, June 30th, 2025. Stay Curious is our weekday video podcast where we talk about space history, astronaut birthdays, interview all kinds of people, including space workers and even the occasional space flyers. So glad that you found us and joined us today. My co-producer Marty Winkle is on our Streamlabs production on the other side there, and we'll be watching for your comments here as I'm bumping up my smart tablet here to get some of your comments from our what's become our family watching this today. A lot of space geeks love our program just for the content. Others love it to see what kind of mistakes I'm going to make and that they can watch as we just wear it warts and all, folks, here on our program today. As usual, over 1,300 episodes in 5 years Marty and I have done together. So hello, Dave Stange. He's certainly one of the #1 viewers there in RG Jubilee, saying hi to us all. And we're going to talk about spacey things that are falling from the sky or that we think we're seeing in the sky. We're going to talk about meteorites and meteors, as this is Happy Asteroid Day. World Asteroid Day is today, June 30th. And we had a program last week about Asteroid Day, the conference that was over this weekend in Luxembourg. I watched a little bit of the live telecast there, and it's not a case of when, it's not a case of if, it's a case of when will the next big one hit the Earth. And what are the odds of that? Well, stay tuned. We're going to give you some odds of asteroids hitting the Earth, how frequently that is. But in the news last week was a space traveler entered broad daylight over suburban Atlanta. And a lot of people recorded that on their video cameras in their cars, as well as it did go through, pieces of it went through somebody's house, and nobody got hurt. But we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about, maybe you've all been to one of the most famous craters on Earth, Meteor Crater in Arizona. And the whole day of Asteroid Day started because in 1908 something exploded over Siberia and leveled just millions of square miles of forest. And had that happened over Moscow, we'd probably still be rebuilding Moscow 117 years later. So enjoy Asteroid Day today if you didn't know it. In fact, the Congressman, Senator Mark Kelly proposed Asteroid Day be observed in America. After all, it is an international event observed by the United Nations. So I'm sure it escaped your news feed today, but I was actually part of a news feed today that I'll show you here in a few minutes. But we want to tell you that we're going to talk about the Webb Telescope sees a new planet. All right, and some summertime backyard stargazing we're going to talk about, along with the meteors that you'll see from your backyard if you're just patient enough. So we want to thank everybody for supporting our auction Saturday. Auction 38 was a very big success. Your winning bid helped us a lot. Marty is a board member of our U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation nonprofit board here. We did pretty good. We'll have a healthy check from Bid Again Auctions that is good cash flow money for us. And some of the items went for pretty low prices, and it was a mediocre auction. Not a lot of stellar things in it. We had some great stuff in it as usual, but not a lot of like Neil Armstrong autographs or flags that been to the moon type of thing that garner a lot of monies. But thank you all. Chuck Jeffrey's already loading up auction 39, and we'll probably have that towards the end of the summer, and we'll let you know all about that. Well, here's two new friends that came in today. Our friend Jefferson Michaelis on the right from his foundation in Brazil, and he brought in this Brazilian junior who is the planetarium director at the Pico das Cabra observatory, and it is quite a complex you're going to see here in a minute, outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Uh, Gave him a good tour. He wasn't really good on English, so Jefferson was translating into Portuguese, but we made a new friend there. In fact, Marty, he's inviting me to come to Sao Paulo and stay at his house and come and see his observatory. So I got to get my passport straightened up there so I can go to Brazilian Science Day. And they have a huge day in March. Brazil is crazy about science, and particularly space science. And when I say crazy, they filled up a soccer stadium with about 20,000 students at some of their events there. So, Junior, great meeting you. There is his observatory. What a fabulous, look at the Saturn building there, the moon. Okay, several telescopes around there, a radio telescope. This is up in the mountains outside of Sao Paulo. It's called Pica das Cabra. And so we will have to put that on our bucket list, Marty. That looks fabulous. Observatory. Well planned, of course. There is Junior with me. Bequeathed me a hat that I left over on my desk there in our workers gallery, where we have the space flown black box and a space flown space hab. And my good producer Marty, as usual. Junior, here's your hat, buddy. Thank you so much. What a cool hat. MAAS, okay, from the Museum of Alberto de Astronomy there outside of Sao Paulo. And it's a raised hat there, as you can see there. Very, very cool hat. Matches my gray. Everywhere a gray hat, so I'll be wearing that stargazing outside there. It's even got the louvers on it there to keep my head cool. So, Junior, great to meet you, and thanks for all that you do in astronomy there in Brazil. Well, the moon, Marty, is 6.5 days old today. So, where is it in the night sky? When you want to talk like an amateur astronomer, we say the moon is 6 days old, going to 7. And that's an easy one to figure out, isn't it, Marty?
Yeah.
6-day-old moon. Where's it going to be located in the sky?
I have no idea.
7, it's going to be in, when the sun sets, you're going to see it in the sky towards the south, of course, because our inclined axis, you're always going to see the planets and the moon in the south. You never see them up in the north by the Milky Way. But 7 days old is first quarter. So first quarter is halfway between full and new moon. So the moon's going to look like this, and it's going to be in the night sky. Beautiful. Not super bright. That's going to, when it gets brighter after first quarter, then the moonshine starts blotting out the fainter stars and faint nebulas and galaxies. And this is a great time to see the Apollo landing site is right there. Let me try with my other hand. Yeah, Apollo landing site is right there. Tranquility Base, right on what we call the Terminator. So get a pair of binoculars. I know you've got them for sporting events or birding, and put them on the moon. Try and hold it as steady as you can by holding them against your chest. Happen to have a pair of binoculars here. That's the best way to do any kind of entry-level stargazing, is to hold them against your chest to anchor them. And we've talked about you can buy a little device that attaches right here. You can always take the little knob off there. There is a screw in there to set that to screw it to a tripod. And bingo, you have hands free to look at the moon and some deep sky objects, and you can even see the moons of Jupiter. So get out and start getting you a little moonshine. But as we look at the moon, and I'm showing you where the Apollo landing sites were, several of them are visible the next couple days, and that line between night and day is called the terminator. All right, nothing to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We call it twilight here on Earth, the morning and evening twilight before sunrise. So on the moon, the day is over 29 days old. And when you get a telescope, it's fun to have a moon map and see all the names of everything there. And you can really see this crater Moltke and right up above its tranquility base. And 3 of the craters there that were not named, they named after Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. So, but this was big stuff in the 60s, trying to figure out where was a smooth place for the Eagle to land. And they found as you went down to even 6 feet above the moon, there were still craters there that were a few inches across from no atmosphere and the meteorites pounding into it. So, and always in the news is the moon, and the India orbiter called Chandrayaan is orbiting the moon, and it snapped a new photo of the Apollo 11 descent stage. Marty, there's your descent stage that you worked on. You can see just a little bit of foot trails going out this way was the way that Aldrin went. That trail at the top is Neil going over to a crater to look inside of it in there. So that's a strong shadow, early morning or evening sunlight on the descent stage of the lunar module. Again, evidence that we did indeed land on the moon. And this was a photograph, released last week, Marty. And they also did the Apollo 12 landing site that I've not looked up there. International Asteroid Day, all right? And though this didn't garner a lot of attention, something else in the news did. But an International Asteroid Day, literally, there's thousands of near-Earth asteroids, and about once a month, one of them sneaks in between the Earth and the moon. Here, although it doesn't show you the moon, that shows you another asteroid in there. Are we at threat? Yes, we are. Can we defend ourselves? A little bit if we have advanced warning. What's really is hard to find out are these asteroids that are under 100 feet across. And some of these have done some major devastation on Earth. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm seeing Elena is watching us. And Dean Babcock, he said he's been to Meteor Crater. We'll refresh that memory with him. Tommy Usiak and Doug Forrest and Mitch Rothman watching today, as well as Carlton Bailey and Robert Law. So thank you all for enjoying our social hour today. Well, here's what's gotten some really big publicity the last week and has gotten me on local television twice, including this morning. This is a planet discovered by the Webb Telescope. The planet is the orange blob up there. The star in the center is this is a combination of Earth-based and Webb Telescope, showing you a star that has a solar system forming around it. And this is the first time that the Webb Telescope has visually discovered a planet orbiting another star. It has seen other planets orbiting other stars visually because those were known to exist. But checking this star out, it's 111 light years away in the southern constellation Antilla. But the stars, they think, under 10 million years old, and it's encircled by a sprawling debris disk, remnant of a solar system formation. And of course, the big planets, we think, start first. So there is the planet, actually, the blob is the globe of maybe a gas giant like Jupiter and Saturn. All right. It's a hugely important discovery. And because of that, I was asked to be on a podcast. Here I am on a podcast the other day with the local Fox TV affiliate, Orlando Channel 35. And was happy to do that. I'm thinking of Esther was the reporter. Esther Bowers was the reporter doing that. And then she referred me to her producer, who said they wanted me in the studio this morning in Lake Mary, though it's an Orlando station. It's in a suburb of Orlando near Sanford. And there's the studio that they have. Marty, not much bigger than ours. They're building a new studio there. And I do watch this every morning, so I'm very familiar with these three ladies who greeted me to the set. And they were, just of course, because of doing this every day, I'm pretty calm and well mannered on a TV set there. And there they are, left to right is that's Danielle and not Vanessa. I'm trying. Riva's her last. Stephanie, yeah, Danielle, Stephanie, and Amy Caulfield. And Amy Caulfield actually worked in the market in Johnson City, Tennessee, 25 years ago. And I knew a lot of the reporting staff there from doing a lot of outreach with astronomy and so forth back in the day. So there is a thorn surrounded by three roses there. And it was delightful to be live on their newscast on Fox 35 in Orlando. You go to that website, you can probably hear me talk about the this cool discovery by the Webb, which I just knew as much about it as I read. But the important thing is there's 6,000 exoplanets discovered, okay, already. And it's interesting that this one gets all the attention because it's the first one discovered by the Webb visually. And here is our green screen to show you we have thousands of exoplanets, planets orbiting other stars, all right? Exo, outside of, a good term. And these, over 5,000 of them have been found, and they're categorized in, of course, the largest or the biggest ones we find. The smaller ones, like the Earth, will come later with more sophisticated techniques with the telescopes we have, or larger dedicated telescopes to finding these small ones. How do we find these? A lot of it is the inferred movement that the star makes by the gravity of planets pulling on it, or it passes in front of the star, the planet does, and blots its light out. That's very rare because you have to be lined up. This one that they're talking about, we were actually looking down on it like a bullseye. That made it easy for the Webb to discover the planet going around it. There's also spectrum analysis, where a planet is orbiting around and it changes the spectrum of the star and changes the resonance of it here. I'm not going to get all into that because I'll lose you with the science, but there are ways that we can infer planets and do, and then when these planets move in front of the star, maybe we can analyze their atmosphere. That's how we know what kind of an atmosphere they may have. So most of the planets we're finding are hot Jupiters or cold gas giants. We have detected a few ocean worlds and ice giants. Rocky planets and lava worlds will be the last ones to discover on this list. And just a chart to kind of show you how scientists are sizing up the things they're finding of all those 6,000 and counting exoplanets. The first ones were found 33 years ago. And it's quite amazing to think that we found the first planet orbiting another star 33 years ago. Now we're up to 6,000. And as science increases and we've got more time to go to the nearby stars, we'll figure out not whether these are inhabited or not, but whether they're likely to be inhabited. What is odd that one of the star systems that we think have stars a lot like our rocky bodies of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars is called the TRAPPIST system. And yet all of those TRAPPIST would fit inside the orbit of Mercury. And Mercury's about 40 million miles away from the sun. So these are all orbiting a sun that's not as hot as ours. And in fact, it's a class called brown dwarfs that are seen a lot of in there. So technically demanding it is to see stars around other worlds, and yet the Hubble telescope has helped pioneer that, and now the Webb is making those discoveries there. Here's another scientific picture of a solar system being created. They point out here the debris ring. They actually mask the star's brightness so you can see things around it, so the star brightness doesn't outshine it. The bow shock is all stars are traveling through this, the Milky Way galaxy in our case. So you've got kind of a wake of material there. That's the bow shock there. And it's stuff that we're learning is just amazing every day with astronomers using the high-tech telescopes and on Earth and orbiting the Earth to completely alter our understanding of what the universe is like and what planet formation is all about. So to give you a few more details, here are more planets discovered in a digital survey. Okay, what those look like. There's a star, and the other objects around it are planets or beginning planets. Okay, so these are time exposures, and we're not really looking at the surface of these planets yet, but we're seeing some of the loose structure of them as they're being created is what gives us the best sense of where they're at. So pretty heady stuff. To explain a little bit about the Webb telescope, this is a Hubble telescope view of 3 galaxies that are together. These 2 galaxies are colliding with each other, and galaxies are close together in clumps, all right, in our universe. That was something we discovered. We're part of a big clump of about 50 galaxies called the local group, and then there's another group of galaxies that are gravitationally bound by each other. And when I say gravitationally bound, they are light years, millions and millions of light years away from each other. But the Hubble telescope sees these 3 galaxies like this, and the Webb sees them like this, actually looking through the gas and dust of some of these galaxies and seeing other structures. And the analogy I've used is on the TV shows is we've all seen where the law enforcement and other agencies have a camera that can see heat registered inside your home. They can go through your walls and see there's 2 people sitting on the couch and the dog's at their feet, all right, by the heat being emanated. That's infrared radiation, all right, that almost all objects have. That's what the Hubble telescope is seeing, is the infrared radiation of these galaxies and not the visible light, actually seeing through some of the clouds structures, like looking on the other side of the cloud. These are galaxies. Inside the galaxies are nebulas and gigantic clouds of cosmic hydrogen that is the birthplace of stars. Like this big, huge section that was first seen by Hubble, and then this is the image taken by the Webb. Within the galaxies are stars that exploded, and we see them as round little objects in our telescope in our own galaxy. We call those planetary nebula. They have nothing to do with planetary except they look round like a planet. And this is a backyard photograph of what's called the southern ring. We've got a northern ring in Lyra the Harp, and this is the southern ring planetary nebula. And this is again a image taken by the Webb that shows you where the heat is, the hotter areas. Now, when I say heat, it could be 100 below zero in the red and 200 below zero in the cold. So it's the radiative effects. And as you're looking at this, you see the dying star that blew up, part of its envelope of atmosphere, and then the ionized gas is there. The dust cloud around it was the first thing to leave. And it might even go under another explosion, and the that explosion of gases expand faster than the outside ring, and they collide with each other and make all kinds of shapes. There's even a side view of a galaxy that the Webb caught in there. Right in the upper right-hand corner, right there is a galaxy. Everywhere you look are galaxies. Yes, Marty. Question.
RG Jubilee is asking, that is rather fascinating. I wonder if we're going to witness those galaxies crush into each other. Is that possible?
That is not possible in our lifetime or many lifetimes. It's possible over millions of years, where these interactions of galaxies are quite common. In fact, the Andromeda galaxy that we see in the fall sky and our Milky Way galaxy are gravitationally attracted to each other and will probably smash into each other in maybe 10, 20 million years, something like that. But the stars are so far apart, it probably wouldn't change our night sky very much. All right. And when we say crash into each other, it is like a loose group of stars would be stars would not hit each other. They're so far apart. I'm not going to say some wouldn't, but by happenstance and gravitationally attracting them. But yes, that's something you're never going to see looking back at these stars colliding here on the bottom. They're interacting right now. They're maybe 200 million light years away from us outside of our own galaxy. And it'd be fascinating to know exactly what all goes on that. Good question. So another little look inside of our science of some of this stuff that we're studying on a day-to-day basis. So little background of the Webb and some details there just to show you how science works. And now we can see this southern ring change maybe every 10 years. You might see some of the ring has expanded and there might be some different coloration from interactions in here. But things move very slow. They move fast, but because of time, slows everything down, the distances. Well, once again, happy Asteroid Day, as we're going to talk about what is an asteroid. All right, what is a meteorite? What's a comet? Well, a comet and asteroids are very similar, except comets contain more ice. Comets seem to be in the outer realm of our solar system, in what's called the Kuiper Belt, where Pluto dwells, and then beyond that, the Oort cloud, O-O-R-T cloud, which is a big reservoir of the outer leftovers of our solar system. When the solar system was created out of a massive cosmic cloud and the sun ignited into fusion, the radiation of it started emanating out and literally melting and pushing things out into the solar system. This is at least how we understand it today. So the difference is only water in an asteroid. And asteroids in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, many of them don't have a lot of water, or we'd be seeing a lot of tails created by the solar energy that hits them. But when an object is just out moseying along in the solar system, all right, it is called a meteoroid. But when it goes through the atmosphere of Earth or Mars, we've even seen meteors, it's called a meteor. And we have seen meteors go through the atmosphere of Mars, even photographed by the rovers, incredibly so. And then when it hits the ground, it's a meteorite. So it's a meteoroid when it's a rock of cosmic debris floating around in the solar system. When it enters our atmosphere and we see the streak, it's a meteor. And when it's on the ground, you pick it up, it is a meteorite, all right? Now, how do you know whether you have a meteorite or a meteor wrong? Because lots of people have brought me things every year. They say, this is a meteor we found in our backyard. Well, the first thing I do is find a magnet, because most meteorites have iron in them. Some are stony, but the stony chrondites, they call them, have a little bit of metal in them. So most meteorites are attracted by a magnet. So that would be number one, that you're looking at a meteorite. Now, there's slag, pieces of molten iron around the Earth that could be native to here. You look and see if all the edges are rounded, because that would mean it went through the atmosphere and the outside burned up. If a meteorite fell at my feet, Marty, and I walked over and picked it up, coming through the Earth's atmosphere at 30,000 miles an hour, 6 miles of atmosphere, you see the streak, and then there it is laying it, and you walk over to it. Would it be hot or cold to touch?
Good question, Mark. Cold.
It would be cold because it probably covered in frost, because that just fraction of a second that took it to go through the Earth's atmosphere would not be enough to heat up but the outside. And when it found, that would cool immediately, because it's been in the void of space 200 below zero for who knows how many millions of years. So it's super cold in space, but when it goes through the atmosphere, just the outside heats up, and then when it lands, that cold inside would start making it frost. And so you wouldn't, if you picked it up, it'd be like dry ice sticking to your fingers. Well, big news last week. Many of you saw it on TV, where even people in their cars saw a meteorite exploded over Georgia and landed in Henry County. And this was the meteor was seen about 48 miles above the town of Oxford, Georgia, moving south at 30,000 miles an hour. Wow. It disintegrated quickly about 27 miles above West Forest, Georgia, unleashing an energy of about 20 tons of TNT. Here's another person's front porch security camera caught it there. Rarely do you see a meteor, a meteor during the day. If this was at night, oh my God, the shadow that would cast, that would have been incredible. People would have just thought that all heck was breaking loose when they saw that big flash. But it's 12:30 p.m. in the afternoon. Reports came all around from Georgia and South Carolina of a fireball, said the National Weather Service. Some fragments plummeted into Henry County, leaving behind a hole in the ceiling about the size of a golf ball and a crack in a laminate floor. All right. So they're not sure how big this meteor was. Meteoroid, that become a meteor in the atmosphere. And there's the meteorites of it there. 20 tons of TNT is a lot, of course. 20 tons, all right. That'd be 40,000 pounds of TNT. So big news, set off alarms and that sort of stuff, and just gave us a taste of the fact that there's a lot of stuff orbiting our Earth. And in 1908, something they think the size of just 160 feet, 200 feet wide, not an entire football field, maybe just part of a baseball field out there, exploded above Siberia in an area called Tunguska. All right, almost the same latitude as Moscow. All right, and you've got 1, 2, 3 time zones there set up, so it missed Moscow by just a matter of 3 hours in the Earth turning around that amount of time. So it took like 50 years for people to get up there in Siberia to see actually what it was. And what it was here is that area of Tunguska, where 80 million trees were felled, and still nothing is growing in the area where the meteor landed there. So this is the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history on June 30th, 1908, although much larger impacts have occurred in prehistoric time. This would have destroyed Moscow, no doubt about it. They'd still be rebuilding it 100 and some years later. It would have caused great devastation. It hit at an estimated tonnage, impact tons of, where is that? Exploded about 3 to 6 miles above, only 200 feet wide, going at over 40,000 miles an hour. Okay. Between 30 and 50 megatons. All right. Large explosion, probably over 20 megatons of explosion there. And all that atmosphere shoved ahead of it real quick. That's a big impact thing. No crater was found, which leads them to believe it exploded over the air, like we had an event in Russia just 3 years ago. In I'm trying to think the name of the city in Russia, but it created millions of dollars in damage. Actually hurt 160 people cut by glass. So go ahead, Marty.
We have two questions from RG Jubilee. I'll ask them both, Mark. Do you have any pictures of the meteor hitting Mars? And did anyone get hurt when it happened, meaning the one that just hit in Georgia?
No one got hurt in Georgia, okay, in there. Though there are some claims that one woman in the 50s got hit by a meteorite that came through her, and it gave her a bruise on her hip, came through her living room roof in there. And we only have pictures of the trail of meteors in the atmosphere of Mars or Earth. Nobody has taken a picture of a meteorite actually hitting the ground, okay? We either see the streak caused by the light of burning it up, okay, energy dispersed into light, and then the impact crater of the meteorite there, if there is one. So no pictures have ever been taken of an impact, and with everyone having a cell phone camera today, maybe that's just around the corner there. So there's the one familiar crater, probably the most familiar meteor crater on Earth is Meteor Crater in Arizona. Okay, this was created 50,000 years ago during the Pleistocene epoch, when the local climate was much cooler and damper. This used to be a grassland dotted with woods and inhabited by woolly mammoths and giant ground sloths. Okay, the object that made this crater was probably a nickel iron meteorite, only 160 feet across. Again, about the same size as was above Siberia. And this hit with an estimated 10 megatons of TNT. The meteorite was mostly vaporized upon contact, but it left the remains of this crater. And nobody saw this 50,000 years ago. And when human beings went up and saw it, they were amazed. And then intelligent human beings have tried to harvest rocks out of it to find the original meteor crater, and they haven't. And the explosion of this one, of meteor crater, we don't know exactly what seismometer it did, but the one in Siberia, in Tunguska, measured 5 on the Richter scale of the shock wave did, and it could be felt in Germany, United Kingdom, and even Washington, D.C. So a very big event. This would have been a super big event, 50, not the one that took out the dinosaurs. It would have been a bigger, much bigger crater and impact, and thrown a lot more material up in the air. And that's where the dinosaur extinction comes in, is that crater, that meteorite put so much tonnage in the atmosphere that it blotted out the sun with a big layer, like a big shield of sunlight. Plant growth couldn't grow like it wanted to. It was like twilight for maybe a whole century on Earth by what was up in the sky up there. And here's another view of Meteor Crater, quite a tourist attraction, called Behringer Crater by the family that claimed it. They did try to make it a public park at one point in time, but it is privately managed, let's put it that way. NASA astronauts, Apollo astronauts trained around this to harvest there are boulders and so forth that were ejected out that are nearby, so they could check those out on there. So, Marty, you got another question?
No.
Okay. So I see Dean Cliff Watson is watching from Australia. Hey, Cliffy. I bet he went out to Meteor Crater when he was here in the States. So, how often do asteroids hit Earth? Well, one that is about 3 feet in diameter every 2 weeks. We can say one goes through the atmosphere and survives, but most of these are over the ocean, as the Earth is 70% ocean. All right. One's 20 meters. That's not miles, that's 20 meters. All right, 20 meters would be about 60 feet. About every 50 years, an asteroid will reach the ground that is 60 feet across. All right. Now, 100 meters or 300 feet across, we think that one hits us about every 10,000 years. Okay. One over a kilometer, 6/10 of a mile, hits the Earth between every 500,000 to 1 million years. And then one that is over a kilometer, okay, which would be over 3,000 feet across, 1 to 300 million years. All right, and there you see the type of destruction at the bottom that either one of these can do. So a city scale destruction every 10,000 years, we hit that maybe at Siberia. But this is just average numbers to kind of make people feel good, because you could get them back to back, who knows? And there's a lot of space debris out there. Our solar system is not void, a vacuum. There's all kinds of debris out there. In fact, 10 tons of debris accumulates on the Earth every day. Every day, 10 tons, Marty, that filters down and lands on the Earth. And you know where you can get some of that filtering cosmic dust? In your rain barrel. If you've had a rain barrel for years, you go out and get you a magnet and drip it down in that bottom rain barrel, and when you pull up, there'll be like iron filings attached to that magnet, and that is meteorite dust that rolls off of your roofs. To see the best meteor shower is the night of August 12th to 13th, usually the Perseid meteor shower. Cosmic debris of Comet Swift-Tuttle. My friend Matt Harbison took this picture, superimposed at twilight with all the meteors that he captured on his digital camera one year. So you can look forward to that. I don't have my phone with me to see if that's a good night or not. If the moon is 7 days old, like it will be tomorrow, that will be a good night because the moon will have set. If the moon is 14 days old or somewhere 14 to 20 days old, it's going to be big and bright in the morning sky, and you're not going to see any many meteorites except for the many meteors except for the bright ones. So that last week of that midweek of August is when you'll see the most. Now there's a very important meteor shower called the Quadrant that is also rivals Perseid in the number, and you could see up to 80 meteors an hour, but you're most likely going to see a good 5 to 10 every hour because you can only look in one direction. You can't look in all directions, and just all kinds of other circumstances. So, but anytime you can see a meteorite hanging out in your backyard. Here is an all-sky camera, they call it, with a big bolide right there. That's what the brightest meteors are called. And these are meteor streaks during the Perseid meteor shower as recorded by an all-sky camera that looks around 360 degrees of the sky, so it captures everything. And this is how we keep track of what's happening in the daytime and nighttime sky, thanks to the Meteor Society. A lot of dedicated meteor watchers in the Meteor Society group. So, reminder that we're having spring in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere because our 23.5 degree tilt that our axis is. We don't spin straight up and down. We're knocked over a little bit. Our hemisphere is facing the sun and getting long, bright shadows, okay? Long shadows that are hotter, shadows that are more direct, I should say, not long on there. So that you don't get a suntan from 9 to 11 o'clock or from 3 to 5 o'clock. The sun is too low and the rays aren't as hot to burn your skin, which is what the sunlight's doing. You get a suntan from 11 to 2 when the sun's directly overhead and those rays are coming straight down. The same principle here. The indirect rays at the South Pole that they're getting, Cliff Watson's creating their winter down there in Australia. And he's saying black spots in the snow are meteorites or in the sand. Yes, you see, particularly in Antarctica and the Arctic poles, the magnetic poles are bringing in meteors into there that are metal. And they'll just find them laying on top of the surface in Antarctica all the time as they plop down there. So also, after 12 o'clock, our part of our hemisphere is in the nighttime, and we're going into our orbit around the sun. So after midnight, particularly that couple hours before dawn, like 3 to 5 in the morning, you're going to see the most meteorites and the brightest because the Earth is literally smashing in to the swarm of cosmic debris that they're coming from. So hope that you've enjoyed a little celebration of Asteroid Day, June 30th here, and learned a little bit about the threat of asteroids is real. We actually deterred a asteroid moonlet around an asteroid by smashing something into it 3 years ago. That was called DART, Dual Asteroid Rendezvous Destruction techniques is what they did, and learned that we can do that. So think about that next time you're looking up, and when you look up, just keep your eyes lingering up there. You might see a meteorite. You're surely going to see a satellite or two because there's so many of them circling our atmosphere here. So hope that you've enjoyed this look at what is spacey around our solar system and beyond with all the exoplanets. And July 1st, we might be looking tomorrow at the shuttles of the month of July. We're efforting a couple guests. We will not have a program on July 4th, Friday, because the museum will be closed to allow our volunteers and workers to spend time with our America's holiday, our birthday, July 4th. And I'll also be taking Monday off, so we'll probably do some rerun shows on Friday and Monday if Marty's so inclined to air those for you good people out there. So thanks for watching today. Marty, do I need to fix up anything over there in our Streamlabs?
No, I don't think so. I had a question, but I didn't want to show my ignorance, so I was going to ask it after the show.
Well, go ahead, Marty. You're not ignorant at all. There are no silly questions in astronomy, I guarantee.
I didn't say it was silly, but okay, if a large meteor hits the ground and there's no vegetation growing for years, and you mentioned that,
yeah,
is that because apparently the meteor, which is now a meteorite, does that destroy all the nutrients in the ground, or is it covered with meteor debris suffocating?
Well, that's an excellent question. I don't think there's anything in the meteorite that would be contagious or pollute the soil, like a poison or something like that. I think it's more that the topsoil has been blown out of it and exposed down to the rock, so that a blast like that, when you've got 80 million trees leveled, there's a lot of earth moved, and I think it's just because the earth soil has never come back into that area there. But it's not impossible that a meteorite could contain toxins in it. All right, there are just a few basic types of meteorites or meteoroids. One is a solid iron rock. Another is a combination of rock and stone that mixed up somehow in the planetary formation. Maybe some of these meteorites are planets that didn't form. Maybe they're planets that got busted up and are floating around in there. We do have meteorites from Mars and the moon, and we know that because of the makeup of the meteorite is matches what the Mars atmosphere would be, where a stone would be there, and or the moon where there's no atmosphere. They would be able to carbon date some of those things in that. So we do know that there are meteorites from other planets. There's even been some suspected ones from Venus. How would they get here? By the impact of another meteorite on Mars, threw out so much material that it was faster than the escape velocity of Mars, and ended up, some of it could have even gone in orbit around Mars. Don't know if rings of Saturn and such were created like that. They think the rings of Saturn and other moons are created. They're not sure. Was it leftovers from the moon being created or from a moon that got destroyed? So we barely know what we're talking about on all this stuff. We act like we do, but then you have a great observatory like the Webb Telescope, and it shows us that planets that we're finding, there's a lot of big Jupiter-sized planets close to their star, as close as Mercury is to our star. But that star is not as hot as our sun. And our sun is really not that hot of a star. It's a dwarf. They call it a yellow dwarf. It's actually a pretty small star, less than 1 million miles across. And we've got stars that have put in our solar system which swallow up Earth, Mars, orbit if we set them in here. As we learn more, we might learn that there are contaminants in meteorites. Yes.
And like Cliff Watson is saying, it can heat up the soil and sterilize around it.
That's a good explanation.
That
there
makes sense. So does the topsoil thing make sense.
Throw stuff around, as well as heating up that energy could kill all of the bacteria and so forth that's life-giving for soil, like worms and things like that are in there. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking initially. Okay.
Good question. Cliffy says it's cold and wet down there in Australia. Sorry about that, mate. But we're having our typical weather pattern here in Florida, where it's getting hot, raining in the afternoon, and they're predicting a lot of that, particularly for this week. So, well, thank you all for watching. Hope that you share and tell your friends to like us and watch us, as it's important to our outreach of the museum. And we'll rack it up and do it all again tomorrow, won't we, Marty? Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying, I can't wait to see you in our museum like Junior from Brazil, all to bridge the space between us.